雪国川端康成，飞鸽制作飞鸽文学。就像柿子树的树干一样，房子也破旧不堪，屋顶被雪覆盖，木板腐烂，屋檐掀起波浪。当我进入泥土地板时，天气很冷，我什么也看不见。
Snow Country, Kawabata Yasunari. Flying Pigeon Production at Flying Pigeon Literature. Like the trunks of the persimmon trees, the houses are dilapidated. The roof was covered in snow, the boards were rotting, and the eaves were rippled. When I entered the dirt floor, it was cold and I couldn't see anything.
然后我被迫爬上梯子。就是这样啊，它实际上是一个梯子，上面的房间其实是一个阁楼，那是蚕的房间。现在你喝醉了回家。
Then I was forced to climb up the ladder. That's it, it's actually a ladder. The room above is actually a loft. That's Silkworm's room. Now you go home drunk.
就不常从梯子上摔下来了。我会跌倒的，但当这种情况发生时，我通常会进入休眠状态，然后就睡着了。Komako 说道。我看着他，决定接受他。
I don't often fall off the ladder. I'm going to fall. But when this happens, I usually go into hibernation and fall asleep. Komako said. I looked at it and decided to accept it.
岛村环视着神秘的房间南侧，只有一扇光线昏暗的窗户，但已经更换了细纹帐子纱窗，阳光明媚。墙上贴了一个纸盒子。
Shimamura looked around. There was only one dimly lit window on the south side of the mysterious room, but the fine-grained shoji screen had been replaced, and the sun was shining brightly. There is a cardboard box taped to the wall.
感觉就像是在一个旧纸盒子里，但阁楼却暴露在我的头顶上，而且它向着窗户低垂，就像笼罩着一种黑暗的孤独。
It felt like I was in an old cardboard box, but the attic was exposed above me, and it drooped toward the window like a dark loneliness shrouded in it.
当我想到墙的另一边发生的事情时，我开始感觉这个房间好像悬浮在太空中，我有一种不安的感觉。不过，墙壁和榻榻米虽然旧了，但还是干净的。
As I thought about what was happening on the other side of the wall, I began to feel as if the room was suspended in space and I had an uneasy feeling. However, although the walls and tatami are old, they are still clean.
居子就像蚕一样， 有着透明的身体，似乎就生活在这里。与衫裤类似的棉质条纹蒲团覆盖在冲榻上。五斗柜很旧。
Jizzy is like a silkworm, with a transparent body, and seems to live here. A cotton-striped futon similar to Yamahakama covers the Okinawa. The chest of drawers is very old.
但小麻子在东京的生活，那是一棵美丽的、纹理直的泡桐树，也许是过去的遗迹。镜台破旧不堪，朱漆的针线盒再次展现出奢华的光泽。
But Xiao Matsu's life in Tokyo was a beautiful, straight-grained Paulownia tree, perhaps a relic of the past. The mirror stand is dilapidated. The vermilion lacquered sewing box once again displays a luxurious sheen.
墙上分阶段钉上的木板应该是书架，上面还挂着窗帘。昨晚的榻榻米挂在墙上，红色的内衣背面敞开着。小贞子用尽全力，熟练地爬上梯子。
The wooden planks nailed in stages to the wall were supposed to be bookshelves, with curtains hanging from them. The tatami from last night was hanging on the wall, and the back of her red underwear was open. Little Mako climbed up the ladder skillfully with all his strength.
面朝下说道：“这是从病人的房间里出来的，但他们说火很漂亮，搅动篝火的灰烬。病人说自己得了肠结核，已经回老家等死了。虽然这是我的家乡。”
Face down, he said, "This is from the patient's room, but they said the fire was beautiful." Stirring the ashes of the campfire, the patient said he had intestinal tuberculosis and had returned to his hometown to die. Although this is my hometown.
但我的儿子并不是在这里出生的，这是我母亲的村庄。我的母亲在一个港口小镇当艺妓，即使在她死后，她仍然在那里担任舞蹈老师。
But my son was not born here. This is my mother's village. My mother worked as a geisha in a port town. Even after his death, he continued to work there as a dance teacher.
但仍然是50多岁，并且患有瘫痪，所以他回到了该塔口的温泉来疗养。我儿子从小就喜欢机械，又在钟表店工作。
But still in his 50s and suffering from paralysis, he returned to Gatako's hot springs to recuperate. My son has been fond of machinery since he was a child and worked in a watch shop.
所以我把他留在港口小镇，不久他就搬到了东部， 显然他去了京都上夜校。我猜是我的身体过度劳累了。今年他26岁了。
So I left him in the port town and soon he moved east, apparently to Kyoto, and went to night school. I guess my body was overworked. He is 26 years old this year.
驹子一下子就说了这么多，但他不知道那个带儿子回家的女孩是谁，也不知道驹子为什么会在这个房子里。然而
Jizzy said so much at once, but she didn't know who the girl who brought her son home was, and she didn't know why Jizzy was in this house. However,
在这个仿佛悬浮在空中的房间里，驹子的声音似乎无处不在回响，让岛村难以保持平静。刚走出门，就看到一个淡白色的东西，回头一看。
in this room that seemed to be suspended in the air, Kamako's voice seemed to echo everywhere, making it difficult for Shimamura to remain calm. As soon as I walked out of the door, I saw a pale white thing. When I looked back,
是一个抛铜3味线盒子，它感觉比实际更大更长。当我认为把它带到客厅是一个谎言时，我看到了一个乌黑的推拉门伙伴驹子酱。
it is a Polonia shamisen box. It felt bigger and longer than it actually was, and just when I thought bringing it into the living room was a lie, I saw a jet-black sliding door companion, Kamako-chan.
"我应该跨在这个上面吗？"筑吉的声音悲伤而美丽。木魂似乎是从什么地方回来了。岛村记得晚上在雪地里听到杨子的声音从火车窗外喊站长。
Should I straddle this? Sumiyoshi's voice is sad and beautiful. Mohan seemed to have come back from somewhere. Shimamura remembers hearing Yoko's voice calling the station master from the train window in the snow at night.
好的，驹子回答道。杨子穿着裤裙，跨坐在3味线上，按住玻璃小便池层室。从他昨晚说话的语气来看，他似乎认识站长。从他穿着裤裙的样子来看
Okay, Kamako replied. Yoko was wearing a hakama and sitting astride the shamisen. Holding the glass urinal was. Judging from the tone of her words last night, she seemed to know the station master, judging from the way she was wearing a hakama.
"显然杨子是附近的女孩。由于鲜艳而华丽的腰带部分暴露在裤上，裤的深蓝色和黑色的粗糙棉质条纹鲜明地突出。
Apparently Yoko is the girl from the neighborhood. Because the bright and gorgeous obi is partially exposed on the hakama, the dark blue and black rough cotton stripes of the hakama stand out clearly.
使其成为非常引人注目的景象。长长的下摆同样光滑，裤裙的胯部在膝盖上方裂开，所以看起来像是在慢慢膨胀，硬质的棉布看起来很紧，
making it a very striking sight. The long hem is equally sleek. The crotch of the hakama is split just above the knee, so it looks like it's slowly expanding, and the stiff cotton looks tight. 给人一种明显的廉价感。然而，杨子却狠狠地看了岛村一眼，一言不发地走过了泥地。即使在岛村出柜后，杨子的目光也仿佛灼烧在他的额头上。It gives people an obvious feeling of cheapness. However, Yoko gave Shimamura a hard look and walked across the mud without saying a word. Even after Shimamura came out as gay, Yoko's gaze seemed to be burning on his forehead. 遥远而冰冷如灯，因为当我看着车窗里映出的杨子的脸时，田野和山峦的光从他的脸上飘过。当灯和眼睛重叠，光线突然变得更亮时。Distant and cold as a lamp. Because when I looked at Yoko's face reflected in the car window, the light from the fields and mountains drifted across her face. When the lamp and the eye overlap and the light suddenly becomes brighter. 岛村被感动了难以形容的美丽，前一天晚上的征兆。可能是因为它让我想起了大象。想到这里 Shimamura was moved by the indescribable beauty, a portent of the night before. Maybe because it reminds me of an elephant. Thinking of this,我也想起了橘子红润的脸颊浮在满是镜子的雪中。就这样，我的脚步变得更快了。尽管腿又细又白，岛村却很喜欢爬山，走路时看着山。I also thought of Juzi's rosy cheeks floating in the snow full of mirrors. Just like that, my pace became faster. Although his legs are thin and white, Shimamura likes to climb mountains. He looks at the mountains while walking. 他会不知不觉地走得更快。他总是容易发呆。他很难相信晚景之境或晨雪之境是人造的，这是很自然的。那是一个遥远的世界。He will go faster without realizing it. He was always prone to trances, and it was difficult for him to believe that the mirror of evening view or the mirror of morning snow was man-made. This is natural. It was a distant world.
就连刚从居子的房间里出来的他，也仿佛是一个遥远的世界。果然，看到这样一个人，我很惊讶。当我爬上山时，我看到一位女按摩师走过。
Even when she just came out of Juzzi's room, she seemed to be in a distant world. Sure enough, I was surprised to see such a person, and as I climbed up the hill, I saw a masseuse walking by.
岛村试图抓住什么？按摩师先生，你能给我按摩一下吗？我明白了。现在几点了？他一边说，一边把竹杖夹在腋下，右手伸到腰带之间，打开了腰带。
Shimamura is trying to catch something. Mr. Masseur, can you give me a massage? I understand. What time is it now? As he said, he put the bamboo stick under his arm, reached between his belt with his right hand, and opened the belt.
他拿出一块怀表，用左手指尖摸了摸表盘。第二趟车已经过去了35分钟，我必须在3点30分去车站的另一边，不过我不介意迟到一点。
He took out a pocket watch and touched the dial with the fingertips of his left hand. 35 minutes have passed since the second train. I have to go to the other side of the station at 3:30, but I don't mind being a little late.
你可以清楚地看出时钟上的时间。是的，玻璃被盖住了。当你触摸它时，你能分辨出上面的文字吗？我看不懂上面的字，他说着，又拿出了那块大银表。
You can clearly see the time on the clock. Yes, the glass is covered. When you touch it, can you make out the words on it? I can't understand the words on it, she said, taking out the big silver watch again.
打开了盖子，这里是12点和6点，它的中心似乎是3点。时钟用手指按住，那么即使我1分钟都搞不清楚，那也绝对是2分钟。
Open the lid. Here it is 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock, and its center seems to be 3 o'clock. Clock. Hold it with your finger. Well, even if I can't figure out 1 minute, it's definitely 2 minutes.
我想我无法在斜坡上行走，如果下雨了，我女儿会来接我。晚上，他们蹭了村民，就不再上来了。客栈的女佣说，丈夫不让她出去，所以这不会实现。
I don't think I could walk on a slope, what if? If it rains, my daughter will come to pick me up. At night, they ignored the villagers and stopped coming. The maid at the inn said her husband wouldn't let her out, so it wouldn't happen.
房间里，我们默默地互相摩擦了一会儿。然而，远处榻榻米房间里传来三味线的声音，我歪了歪头。是谁？听三味线的声音，你能认出是哪位艺妓吗？
We rubbed each other in silence for a while in the room. However, I heard the sound of shamisen coming from the tatami room in the distance, and I tilted my head. Who is it? Can you identify which geisha it is by listening to the shamisen's voice?
有人明白，有人不明白。你老公地位很高，身子也软。你不僵硬，是吗？你很僵硬，而且你的脖子也僵硬了。你的体重刚刚增加，但你不喝酒，它不会上升。
Some people understand, some don't. Your husband has a high status and a weak body. You're not stiff, are you? You're stiff and your neck is stiff. You've just gained weight, but you don't drink. It won't go up.
我明白，我认识3个顾客，他们长得很像你的丈夫。为什么我不想喝酒？这没什么有趣的。好吧，我什么都忘了。你丈夫喝酒，对吧？喝酒让我很烦恼。
I see. I know 3 customers who look like your husband. Why? I don't want to drink. It's nothing interesting. Well, I forgot everything. Your husband drinks, right? Drinking bothers me.
有人玩三味线很差劲，你要去玩，对吗？是啊，我从9岁就开始学，一直到20岁。不过自从有了老公，已经15年没听过了。
Some people are terrible at playing shamisen. You're going to play, right? Yes. I started learning it from the age of 9 until I was 20, but since I got my husband, I haven't listened to it for 15 years.
岛村想知道失明是否会使人看起来比实际年龄年轻，并说：“我小时候确实练习过，我的手完全被按摩了，但我的耳朵它是开放的。”
Shimamura wonders if blindness can make people look younger than their actual age, saying, "I did practice when I was a kid, and my hands were completely massaged, but my ears, it was open."
艺妓就是这样做的。 当我听三味线时，我会感到恼火，感觉就像我以前的自己一样倾斜了。也许是井筒屋的富美，她最清楚谁是最好的。
That's what geishas do. When I listen to shamisen, I get annoyed and feel like my old self's tilted. Maybe it's Fumi from Azatsuya. She knows best who is the best.
谁是最差的？有擅长的人吗？驹子酱很年轻，但他已经成为了一个人。干得好。你了解我，先生。即使你说你很擅长，也只是在这样的山里。
Who is the worst? Is there anyone who is good at it? Kamako-chan is young, but she has already become a person. Here you go. You know me, sir. Even if you say you are good at it, it is only in mountains like this.
但我昨晚和我主人的儿子坐了同一趟火车。嘿，你感觉好点了吗？好像不太好吧？因为那个儿子在东京病了很长时间。
But I took the same train last night as my master's son. Hey, are you feeling better? It doesn't look good. Huh? Because that son has been ill in Tokyo for a long time.
所以今年夏天，那个叫小麻子的孩子就以艺妓的身份出现了。听说你给医院寄了钱，但是发生了什么？那个小麻子是谁？但是如果你尽力了。
So this summer the kid named Ponyboy showed up as a geisha. I heard that you sent money to the hospital, but what happened? Who is that Ponyboy? But if you try your best.
即使这只是一笔好交易，也不会持续太久。你真的是一笔好交易吗？是的，我不知道，但那是谣言。
Even if it's just a good deal, it won't last long. Are you really a good deal? Yes. I don't know, but that's a rumor.
从温泉旅馆的女按摩师那里听到艺妓的生活并不常见，但很意外。不过，驹子为了结婚而当艺妓的情况实在是太常见了，岛村实在无法接受。
It's not common, but unexpected, to hear about the life of a geisha from a masseuse at a hot spring hotel. However, it is too common for Kamako to become a geisha in order to get married, and Shimamura really cannot accept it.
这可能是由于道德冲突造成的。他开始想更深入地听听这个故事， 但阿玛却保持沉默。小麻子是我儿子的恩人，杨子是我儿子的新情人。
This may be due to moral conflict. He began to want to hear the story more deeply, but Alma remained silent. Xiaomatzi is my son's benefactor. Yoko is my son's new lover.
但我儿子最终还是死了。如果是努诺，那么白费力气这个词又出现在岛村的脑海里。
But my son eventually died. If it is Nuno, then the word wasted effort appears in Shimamura's mind again.
小麻子信守诺言的努力，以及他为接受治疗而做出的牺牲，肯定都是徒劳的。当我见到驹子时，我以为用力撞他的头是浪费力气。
Ponyboy's efforts to keep her promise and the sacrifices she made to get treatment were certainly in vain. When I saw Ju Z, I thought that hitting her head hard was a waste of energy.
但岛村再一次感觉到他的存在是真的。这种虚假的麻痹之中蕴藏着可耻的危险。海女回来后，岛村还躺在床上，耐心地品味着。
But Shimamura once again felt that her presence was real. There was a shameful danger in this false paralysis, which Shimamura still lay on the bed after Alma's return, patiently savoring it.
我感觉自己浑身发冷，但不知不觉中我已经离开了窗户。打开，山峡很快就陷入了阴凉之中，天色已然寒冷，带着傍晚的色彩。因为夜色的缘故，
I felt myself getting cold, but before I knew it I was away from the window. Open. The mountain gorge soon fell into the shade, and the sky was already cold, with the colors of evening. Because of the darkness of night. 远处的雪山在夕阳的照耀下显得越来越近。最终，随着每一座山的距离和海拔的增加，各种褶皱后面的阴影深度加深。The snow-capped mountains in the distance appear closer and closer under the setting sun. Eventually, as the distance and elevation of each mountain increases, the depth of shadow behind the various folds deepens. 当只剩下山峰上有微弱的阳光时，山峰上的积雪开始褪色，上面就是夕阳。天空、村庄的河岸、滑雪场和神社周围散布着雪松树。When only the faint sunlight remains on the mountain peaks, the snow on the peaks begins to fade, and above is the setting sun. Sky. Cedar trees are scattered around the village's riverbanks, ski slopes and shrines.
在黑色中显得格外醒目。就在岛村感到空虚悲伤的时候，驹子像打开了一盏温暖的灯一样进来了。本旅馆设有咨询会，为迎接滑雪者做准备。
It stands out in black. Just when Dao Cun felt empty and sad, Ju Zi came in like turning on a warm light. The hotel holds consultation sessions to prepare for welcoming skiers.
他说，后来他被邀请参加一个宴会。当他们进入火坑时，他突然抚摸着岛村的脸颊说道：“你今晚的脸色很奇怪。”他揉着你脸颊柔软的肉说道。
He said he was later invited to a party. When they entered the fire pit, she suddenly stroked Shimamura's cheek and said, "Your face looks strange tonight," he said, rubbing the soft flesh of your cheek.
你是个白痴。他看起来有点醉了，但是当他从聚会回来时，我不知道了。我很头疼。出来了。我想喝水，给我点水。我摔倒了，双手捧着脸。
You are an idiot. He looked a little drunk, but when he came back from the party, I don't know anymore. I have a headache. Come out. I want a drink of water. Give me some water. I fell down with my face in my hands. 根本不顾自己的头发被打碎了，然后又坐了起来，用奶油把白色的粉末盖在了头发上。当它掉落的时候，露出了鲜红的脸。驹子继续开心地笑。Not caring that his hair was shattered, he sat up again and covered his hair with white powder with cream. When she fell, her bright red face was revealed, and Kamako continued to laugh happily. 有趣的是，我很快就清醒了。他肩膀颤抖，神情冰冷。然后他小声地开始讲述自己整个8月都在精神崩溃中度过的经历。The funny thing is I sobered up pretty quickly. His shoulders were trembling and his expression was cold. Then, quietly, he began to describe how he had spent the entire month of August suffering a nervous breakdown. 我担心我会疯狂地思考一些事情，我真的不知道它能持续多久。一定很吓人吧？我根本睡不着，所以我去客厅时唯一做的就是看钟。I'm worried that I'm going to be crazy thinking about something and I don't really know how long it's going to last. It must be scary. I couldn't sleep at all, so when I went to the living room the only thing I did was look at the clock.
我有很多梦想，连米饭都很难吃。我走到榻榻米垫子前，把缝衣针插进插把。在炎热的天气里，我总是这样做。你是在什么月份成为艺妓的？
I have many dreams. Even the rice is tasteless. I walked over to the tatami mat and inserted and unplugged my sewing needle, as I always do on hot days. In what month did you become a geisha?
也许我现在应该去滨松了。你成家了吗？小贞子点点头。一个滨松的男人追着我求婚，但我就是无法爱上他。我说我很困惑。
Maybe I should go to Hamamatsu now. Are you married? Little Mako nodded. A man from Hamamatsu chased me to propose, but I just couldn't fall in love with him. I said I was confused.
迷失在自己不喜欢的事情中不是可以吗？那是不可能的。我想知道婚姻是否有这种力量。这很顽皮。我不这么认为。
Isn't it okay to get lost in things you don't like? That is impossible. I wonder if marriage has that power. It's naughty. I do not think so.
但如果我的周围环境没有得到妥善的整理，我就无法生活。是啊，你真是个邋遢的人。但是，那个来自滨松的人发生了什么事情吗？如果你有那个……
But I can't live without my surroundings being sorted out. Yes. You are such a sloppy person. But what happened to the man from Hamamatsu? If you have that.
你就不会迷路了，小麻子宣称。但是，当你在这片土地上时，你会是谁？我不会让你结婚的。我会做任何事来妨碍你，像滨松一样躲得远远的。
You won't be lost, Ponyboy declared. But who will you be when you are in this land? I won't let you get married. I'll do anything to get in your way. Like Hamamatsu, stay away.
小贞子沉默了一会儿，享受着我一动不动地躺在风中的温暖。她随口说道：“我还以为我怀孕了呢，现在想想还挺好笑的，呵呵。”她笑道，一边说着。
Little Mako was silent for a while, enjoying the warmth of me lying motionless in the wind. He said casually, I thought I was pregnant, but now that I think about it, it's quite funny, ah. He laughed. While talking.
他一边耸耸肩，像个孩子一样，用紧握的拳头抓住了岛村的衣领，漆黑的睫毛紧紧地皱在一起，看起来黑眸半睁着。第二天一早，岛村醒来的时候，
He shrugged like a child and grabbed Shimamura's collar with his clenched fist. The dark eyelashes were tightly wrinkled together, and the black eyes looked half open. Early the next morning, when Shimamura woke up,
驹子已经靠在火盆上，在一本旧杂志的背面乱写乱画，说道：“哎，我不能回家了。”女仆来把火放进去了。当她来的时候，我惊讶地跳了起来，她太丑了。
Kamako was already leaning against the brazier, scribbling on the back of an old magazine, saying, "Oh, I can't go home." The maid came and put the fire in. When it came, I jumped in surprise. Come on, it's so ugly.
阳光照在帐子屏风上。我昨晚喝醉了，所以我想我睡着了。什么时间？已经8点了。我们去洗澡吧。岛村起身说道。不用了，我去走廊见一个人。他说着。
The sun shines on the shoji screen. I was drunk last night, so I thought I fell asleep. What time? It's already 8 o'clock. Let's go take a shower. Shimamura stood up and said, "No, I'm going to meet someone in the corridor." She said,
变成了一个安静的女人。当岛村洗完澡回来时，她灵巧地用毛巾捂住了头，忙着打扫自己的房间。她似乎很擅长擦拭桌腿和火盆边缘，搅动灰烬。
became a quiet woman. When Shimamura came back from taking a shower, she deftly covered her head with a towel and was busy cleaning her room. He seemed to have a knack for wiping table legs and brazier rims, stirring up ashes. 岛村在火光下双脚打滚，让香烟上的烟灰落下。驹子用手帕轻轻地擦去。我把它拿出来，拿来一个烟灰缸。岛村像早上一样笑起来，驹子也笑了。 Shimamura rolled on his feet under the firelight, letting the ashes from his cigarette fall, and Kamako wiped them away gently with a handkerchief. I took it out and got an ashtray. Shimamura smiled as he had in the morning. Juzi also smiled. 如果你有房子，你老公就会一直被骂。你不必责备我。人们经常嘲笑我总是把衣服叠得很好，但这只是我的本性。他们说 ，If you own a house, your husband will be scolded all the time. You don't have to blame me. People often laugh at me for always folding my clothes so well, but that's just who I am. They said.
看五斗橱里面就能看出女人的本性。当我吃着饭时，早晨的阳光洒满了房间。我说：“这是美好的一天，我应该回家的。”在这样的日子里，我听不到声音。
You can see a woman's true nature by looking inside the chest of drawers. As I ate my meal and the morning sunlight filled the room, I said, "This is a beautiful day. I should go home." On days like this, I can't hear the sound.
那是不同的。小马科抬头看着晴朗的天空，远处的山峦被一层柔和的乳白色所覆盖，看上去就像是烟雪。岛村想了想海女的话。
That's different. Little Mako looked up at the clear sky. The mountains in the distance were covered with a layer of soft milky white, which looked like smoke and snow. Shimamura thought about Alma's words.
“说就在这里修行吧。”小麻子立刻站了起来。我打电话回家，要求送一本《咏歌》和一套换洗衣服。正当岛村疑惑白天看到的房子里是否有电话时，
Let's practice here. Xiaomatsi stood up immediately and I called home, asking for a copy of Yonga and a change of clothes. Just when Shimamura was wondering if there was a phone in the house he saw during the day. 杨子的目光再次闪入他的脑海，问道：“那个女孩会带电话吗？”“也许吧。”“你说那是你儿子的恩赐。”“哦，昨天你很奇怪，为什么你昨天不这么说？但是这次…… Yoko's eyes flashed into his mind again and asked, "Will that girl bring a phone?" Maybe. You said it was a gift from your son. Oh. Yesterday, you are weird. Why didn't you say that yesterday? But this time. 与昨天白天不同，小麻子很干净。如果我不鄙视你，那就很难说。我甚至不喜欢东京的人，因为他们是骗子。我不会的，我真的这么说的。你又在撒谎了。Unlike yesterday during the day, Xiaomatsi was very clean. It would be hard to say without me despising you. I don't even like people in Tokyo because they are liars. I wouldn't. I really said that. You're lying again. 尽管你不是故意的，好吧，
我觉得我无法接受，但你说你成为艺妓是为了结婚并赚钱支付医疗费用，这很淫秽，就像一部新的学校戏剧。
Even though you didn't mean to. Okay, I don't think I can accept this, but you said you became a geisha to get married and make money to pay for medical bills. It's obscene, like a new school play.
好消息是一个谎言，似乎有很多人这么想。这并不意味着我是艺妓，但我必须做我该做的事。你总是说一些看起来很神秘的话。
The good news is a lie. It seems a lot of people think so. That doesn't mean I'm a geisha, but I have to do what I have to do. You always say things that seem mysterious.
当主人认为我和儿子在一起是个好主意的时候，我会清楚地告诉你，可能有，只在心里，从来不说出来。我和儿子都隐约明白了主人的想法。不过
When the owner thinks it's a good idea for my son and I to be together, I'll let you know clearly. Maybe. I only keep it in my heart and never say it out loud. My son and I both vaguely understand the master's thoughts. However,
两人并没有什么特别的地方，但只有，是的，但我们分开住。当我被卖到东京时，他是唯一送我的人，他把它给了我。
there is nothing special about the two of them. But only. Yes, but we lived separately. When I was sold to Tokyo, he was the only one who gave it to me. He gave it to me.
这就是我在我最古老的日记的开头写的。如果我们都在那个港口小镇，我们现在可能已经在一起了。我认为这不会发生。我想是的。
This is what I wrote at the beginning of my oldest journal. If we had all been in that poor town, we might have been together by now. I don't think that's going to happen. I think so.
你不用担心其他人，你很快就会死的。此外，留在其他地方也不是一个好主意。你这样说也不是一个好主意。人在哪里？你怎么能阻止他呢？
You don't have to worry about anyone else. You'll be dead soon. Besides, it's not a good idea to stay anywhere else. It's not a good idea to say that. Where are the people? How can you stop it?
岛村无话可说。可是，为什么驹子从来不提杨子呢？而对于杨子来说， 那个带她回家的男人忘我的像年轻的母亲一样照顾她。
Shimamura had nothing to say. But why does Kamako never mention Yoko? As for Yoko, the man who took her home cared for her selflessly like a young mother.
甚至在火车上带换洗的衣服时，心里又是怎样的想法？早上的驹子，就在岛村沉浸在遥远的白日梦中时，他听到杨子美丽的。
Even when I was bringing a change of clothes on the train, what were my thoughts? Morning full? Just when Shimamura was immersed in a distant daydream, he heard Yoko's beautiful.
低沉而清晰的声音喊道：“小马，小马。”是的，谢谢你的辛勤工作。小麻子站在隔壁房间的第3张榻榻米面前说道：“杨子小姐来了。”好吧，大家都很沉重。
A low and clear voice shouted, "Xiao Ma, Xiao Ma." Yes, thank you for your hard work, Xiaomatsi said, standing in front of the 3rd tatami in the next room. Miss Yoko is here? Okay, everyone is very heavy.
杨子弹起了第3根线，他的手指被剪掉并更换后，我调整了它。与此同时，我能听到他的声音。佐江明白了。
Yang flicked the 3rd string. I adjusted it after her fingers were clipped and replaced. At the same time, I could hear her voice Sae understood.
但当他打开火堆上那个笨重的包袱皮包裹时，却发现里面除了一本普通的练习本之外，里面还只有八七木谷的20本文化3味线乐谱。
But when she opened the heavy furoshiki package on the fire, she found that in addition to an ordinary exercise book, there were only 20 bunka shamisen music scores by Yachichi Kijiya.
于是岛村惊讶地捡了起来。你练习过这种东西吗？因为我们这里没有师傅，我们别无选择。他在家里，对吧？我瘫痪了，我的嘴瘫痪了，我神志无法说话。
So Shimamura picked it up in surprise. Have you ever practiced this kind of thing? Because we don't have a master here. We have no choice. He's at home, right? I'm paralyzed. My mouth is paralyzed. I even unable to speak.
我仍然可以用移动的左手跳舞，但3味线只会让我的耳朵吵闹。你是这么理解的吗？我明白了。
I can still dance with my moving left hand, but the shamisen just makes my ears noisy. Is that how you understand it? I see.
我确信业余爱好者会很高兴看到艺伎在偏远的山区练习，所以音乐商店也会很高兴。Chen 的主要部分是跳舞，即使在那之后。
I'm sure amateurs would be happy to see geisha practicing in remote mountainous areas, and so would music stores. The main part of Ochan is dancing, even after that.
我在东京有机会练习的也是跳舞。我只依稀记得弹三味线，但如果我忘记了，我就再也没有人来帮我挖掘了，所以我只能依靠乐谱了。
What I had the opportunity to practice in Tokyo was also dancing. I only vaguely remember playing the shamisen, but if I forget, I don't have anyone to help me dig out anymore, so I have to rely on sheet music.
那首歌呢？不是的，我练习舞蹈时熟悉的那首歌很好，但新的是收音机。我记得在哪里听过，但不知道是什么。我确信这很奇怪。
What about that song? No, yes, the song I knew from my dance practice was good, but the new one was on the radio. Oh, I remember hearing it somewhere, but not sure what it was. I'm sure it's weird.
因为这是我自己的思维方式。还有，我不能在我熟悉的人面前说话。但当我不认识的人的时候，我可以唱得更大声。他有点害羞地说，然后直起身来。
Because this is my own way of thinking. Also, I can't talk in front of people I know well. But I can sing louder when it's people I don't know, he said a little shyly, straightening up.
仿佛在等待有人唱歌，看着岛村的脸，岛村顿时被感动了。他在东京闹市区长大，从小就习惯了歌舞伎和日本舞蹈，至少学会了长歌的乐句。
As if waiting for someone to sing, he looked at Shimamura's face. Shimamura was immediately moved. He grew up in downtown Tokyo and was accustomed to kabuki and Japanese dance since he was a child. He at least learned the phrases of long songs.
我自然听惯了，但我自己却从未学过。当您想到长歌时，您会立即想到舞台，而不是艺伎的房间。我不想。我是最紧张的顾客，驹子咬着下唇说道。
Of course I am used to hearing it, but I have never learned it myself. When you think of a long song, you immediately think of a stage, not a geisha's room. I don't want to. I'm the most nervous customer, Kamako said, biting her lower lip.
但当他把三味线放在腿上时，他注意到另一个人。我诚实地打开了练习册，想知道是不是将是可能的。今年秋天，你练习了音符。
But as she put the shamisen on her lap, she noticed someone else. I honestly opened the exercise book and wondered if it will be possible. And quote, this fall, you practiced your notes, end quote.
Kanjinko 说，顿时，岛村感觉脸颊凉得起了鸡皮疙瘩，连胃部都感觉轻轻的。三味线的声音在我空虚的脑海里回响。
Kanjincho said. Immediately, Shimamura felt cold goosebumps on his cheeks, and even his stomach felt clear. The sound of shamisen echoed in my empty mind.
他不但没有感到惊讶，反而彻底崩溃了。我被虔诚所震撼，也被悔恨洗刷了。我无奈，只好自暴自弃，甘愿被驹子的力量卷走。他，19。
Instead of being surprised, he was completely devastated. I was struck by piety and washed away by regret. I had no choice but to give up on myself and be willing to be swept away by Juzi's power. Ta. 19.
,20年级的乡村艺伎弹的三味线一定很出名，虽然是榻榻米房间，但他们弹的就像在舞台上一样。岛村试图认为这只是我自己的感受。善
The shamisen played by the 20th grade village geisha must be famous. Although it is a tatami room, they play it as if they are on the stage. Shimamura tries to think that this is just my own feeling. Mountain.
,小麻子故意把抱怨读得太轻了，我试图跳过这一部分，说太麻烦了，但慢慢的，就像着了魔一样，我孩子的蛙声越来越强了。
Xiao Matzi deliberately read the complaint too lightly. I tried to skip this part, saying it was too troublesome, but slowly, like a man possessed, my child's wow sound became stronger and stronger.
,拨片的声音依然强劲而清晰。岛村吓得用手肘翻了个身，试图装出一副样子。当官人帖完成后，岛村松了口气，心想：哦。
The sound of the pick remained strong and clear. Shimamura was so frightened that he rolled over on his elbows and tried to show off. When viewing people was completed, Shimamura breathed a sigh of relief and thought, "Oh."
这个女人是爱上我了，但也很可怜。在这样的日子里，声音是不一样的。驹子抬头看着白雪皑皑的晴空，只这么说道：“空气它们是不同的。”
This woman is in love with me, but also very pitiful. On days like this, the sound is different. Kamako said as she looked up at the clear, snowy sky. Air they are different.
没有剧院的围墙，没有观众，没有城市的尘埃，只有声音，在纯净的冬日早晨，清脆而清晰，直达远处的雪山，引起了我的共鸣。尽管他自己并不知道。
No theater walls, no audience, no city dust, just sound, crisp and clear on a pure winter morning, reaching to the snowy mountains in the distance, struck a chord with me. Even though she doesn't know it.
但他还是习惯了在峡谷的大自然中独自练习，因此他学会了演奏八弓。那种孤独超越了悲伤，蕴藏着狂野的意志力。即使你有一定的基础。
But she got used to practicing alone in the nature of the canyon, so she learned to play hachiko. That kind of loneliness transcends sadness and contains wild willpower. Even if you have a certain foundation.
也必须需要很大的意志力，才能用乐谱自学一首复杂的歌曲，并且能够在不使用乐谱的情况下演奏它。小贞子的生活方式。
It also takes a lot of willpower to teach yourself a complex song in sheet music and to be able to play it without using sheet music. Little Mako's lifestyle.
在岛村看来是徒劳的努力和遥远的钦佩，却洋溢着泡菜的声音，对他来说充满了价值。岛村或许是驹子最完美的聆听者。
What seems to Shimamura to be futile efforts and distant admiration, is filled with the sound of pickles and is full of value to her. Shimamura may be Kamako's most perfect listener.
因为他对精细的手部动作没有敏锐的感觉，而只能理解声音的情感。当他开始演奏第3首歌的宫古通时，岛村的鸡皮疙瘩已经消失了。
Because he has no keen sense of fine hand movements and can only understand the emotion of sounds. By the time he started playing Miyakodori on the 3rd song, Shimamura's goosebumps had disappeared.
部分原因是歌曲的柔和。我看着橘子的脸，感到温暖和安心。当我这样做时，我感受到了一种深深的身体亲密感。他瘦高的鼻子一定有点孤单。
Part of that is the softness of the song. I looked at Jizzy's face and felt warm and reassured. When I did this, I felt a deep sense of physical intimacy. Her tall and thin nose must be a bit lonely.
但他的脸颊却活泼开朗，仿佛在低声说：“我在这里。”那双美丽的、血色光滑的嘴唇微微撅起的时候，反射出的光芒似乎也在动，那就是这样的歌声。
But her cheeks were lively and cheerful, as if she were whispering, "I'm here." When those beautiful, blood-smooth lips were slightly pursed, the reflected light seemed to be moving. That was such a singing voice.
即使随着时间的推移，它又很快地收缩起来，就像它的魅力一样。身体向下倾斜的眉毛下，眼角既不上扬也不落下，那双仿佛故意拉直的眼睛。
Even as time went on, it shrank back quickly, just like her charm. Body. Under the downward sloping eyebrows, the corners of the eyes neither rise nor fall. Those eyes seem to be straightened deliberately.
此时却湿润而闪亮，看起来就像是一个小孩子。没有白色的粉末，城里的水生液里包着百合或洋葱一样的球晶，染上山的颜色。她的皮肤清新干净。
At this time it was moist and shiny, looking like a child. Instead of white powder, the city water business peels bulbs like lilies or onions, stained with the color of the mountains. His skin is fresh and clean.
脖子上流着一丝血色。虽然她坐姿端正，但看上去却异常少女。最后，她说了自己正在排练的事情，一边看乐谱，一边弹奏新歌谱蹈。
There was a trace of blood on his neck. Although she sat upright, she looked extremely girlish. Finally, she talked about what she was rehearsing, reading the music score and playing the new song, Urashima.
然后橘子默默地弹奏着拨片。当我掐他的时候，他的身体就倒塌了。我的性感一下子就溢出来了。岛村无话可说。
Then Jizzy played the pick silently. When I pinched him, his body collapsed. My sexiness suddenly overflowed. Shimamura had nothing to say.
但驹子似乎完全不介意岛村的批评，看上去是发自内心的高兴。你听三味线就知道他们是谁吗？当然可以，我们这里只有不到20个人，你知道。
But Kamako didn't seem to mind Shimamura's criticism at all, and seemed genuinely happy. Do you know who they are just by listening to the shamisen? Sure, we only have less than 20 people here, you know.
那个人的习惯是最明显的。然后他再次拿起三味线，右腿弯曲移动，将三味线的本体放在小腿上。我小时候就是这样学的，他说，身体向右倾斜。
That person's habits are the most obvious. Then, he picked up the shamisen again, bent his right leg, moved, and placed the body of the shamisen on his calf. That's how I learned it as a kid, he said, leaning to the right.
臀部向左弯曲。我小时候就学过这个，他大声唱道。你是先了解黑头发的吗？没有，驹子摇摇头，就像他小时候一样。此后，即使驹子留宿一晚。
Bend your hips to the left. I learned this as a kid, he belts out. Did you know black hair first? No, Kamako shook her head, just like she did when she was a child. After that, even if Juzi stays for one night.
他也不再强迫自己在天亮前回家。小贞子，他在走廊的远处喊道，急切地抱着旅馆里的女孩靠近火光。玩完后
She no longer forced herself to go home before dawn. Mako-chan, he called from the far side of the corridor, eagerly holding the girl in the hotel closer to the light of the fire. After playing,
中午时分，我和3个孩子一起去了澡堂。洗完澡后，用梳子梳理头发。如果这个女孩看到艺妓，她会叫她小麻子。
At noon I went to the bathhouse with my 3 children. After taking a shower, comb your hair with a comb. If the girl sees a geisha, she will call her pony boy.
如果他在照片或绘画中看到日本人的头发，他会叫他小麻子。我喜欢孩子，所以我理解。去看你和小麻子了，我们去海滩吧，他说。
If she saw a Japanese person with hair in a photo or painting, she would call her pony boy. I love kids, so I understand. Going to see you and Pony Boy. Let's go to the beach, he said.
但他又在走廊的一把藤椅上坐下来。我是东京的急躁家伙， 我已经跑过去了。南边的山坡上就是这个房间了。当岛村从火光中转过身来时
But he sat down on a wicker chair in the corridor and said, I am an impatient guy from Tokyo. I have already ran over. This room is on the southern hillside. When Shimamura turned around from the firelight,
他发现山坡上的雪斑斑驳驳，5、6个人还穿着黑色的滑雪服。他在田地脚下的田野里爬行，梯田的田脊还被雪遮住了，坡度也不大，完全没有问题。
He found patches of snow on the slopes, and 5 or 6 people wearing black ski suits. It crawls in the fields at the foot of the fields. The ridges of the terraced fields are still covered by snow, and the slope is not steep, so there is no problem at all.
听起来像个学生，这不是很有趣吗？但是他走路的姿势很好，小麻子自言自语道，向艺伎问好。滑雪场，顾客们看到漆黑的雪都感到惊讶。我不知道。
Isn't it fun to sound like a student? But he walks very well, Ponyboy said to himself. Say hello to the geisha. At the ski resort, patrons were surprised to see the dark snow. I don't know.
因为它被烧焦了。晚上你要化妆。果然，穿上滑雪服。哦，我讨厌它，我会在榻榻米上。房间，那么明天我们再去滑雪场，很快就到了。嘿。
Because it's burnt. You have to put on makeup in the evening. Sure enough, put on your ski clothes. Oh, I hate it, I'll be on the tatami. Room, then we will go to the ski resort tomorrow, we will be there soon. Hey.
我想今年我会停止走路。再见。来吧，小吉米，我们走吧。今晚下雪了。下雪前一天晚上会很冷。当岛村坐在驹子身后的藤椅上时
I think I will stop walking this year. Goodbye. Come on, little Kimmy, let's go. It's snowing tonight. It will be very cold the night before it snows. When Shimamura sat on the wicker chair behind Kamako,
他看到驹子带着公子在滑雪场边缘的斜坡上回家。当云层散去时，有的山在阴影中，有的山还在接受阳光。随着天气变冷，阴影每时每刻都在变化。
he saw Juzi leading his son home on the slope at the edge of the ski resort. When the clouds disperse, some mountains are in shadow and some are still receiving sunlight. As the weather gets colder, the shadows change every moment.
这是一个美丽的景色，但最终滑雪场开始消失在黑暗中。从窗户往下看，只见枯萎的菊花上结满了琼枝一样的霜柱。
It was a beautiful view, but eventually the ski slopes began to disappear into darkness. Looking down from the window, I saw that the withered chrysanthemums were covered with agar-like frost pillars. 但屋顶上的积雪融化的排水沟声音却一直持续不断。那天晚上并没有下雪，而是冰雹接着下雨。回家之前，在月明风清的夜晚。But the sound of melting snow on the roof and in the gutters was constant. It didn't snow that night, but hail followed by rain. Before going home, on a bright moonlit night,
空气变得寒冷刺骨，岛村再次打电话给驹子，他到的时候已经快11点了，但他没有约我去散步。不知怎的，我把他从篝火里抱了起来。
The air became bitingly cold, and Shimamura called Kamako again. It was almost 11 o'clock when she arrived. But she didn't ask me to go for a walk. Somehow, I picked him up from the campfire. 强行带了出来。道路结冰了，村庄正在寒冷的深处沉睡。驹子将下摆系起来，塞进腰带里。月亮像蓝色冰中的利刃一样突出。我要去车站。我疯了。 He was taken out by force. The roads are icy. The village is sleeping in the cold depths. Kamako tied up the hem and tucked it into his belt. The moon stood out like a sharp blade in the blue ice. I'm going to the station. I'm crazy. 往返有1英里。我猜你要回东京了，我要去看看车站。岛村感到从肩膀到大腿都冷了。当驹子回到自己的房间时，他突然感到郁闷，他低着头。1 mile round trip. I guess you're going back to Tokyo. I'm going to check out the station. Shimamura felt cold from her shoulders to her thighs. When Juzi returned to her room, she suddenly felt depressed. She lowered her head. 双臂深深地埋在火光里。我神志不能洗澡，让日式蒲团保持原样，急挂蒲团与日式蒲团重叠，使日式蒲团的下摆到达枯日式蒲团的边缘。His arms were buried deep in the firelight. I couldn't even take a shower. Leave the futon as it is, i.e. the hanging futon overlaps the futon so that the hem of the futon reaches the edge of the hoary futon.
一张床已经铺开，驹子一动不动地躺着，头被侧面的火光照亮。发生了什么？我要回家了。你是个白痴。好吧，你可以休息了。你为什么要离开？
A bed had been rolled out, and Ju-zi lay motionless, his head illuminated by the firelight from the side. What happened? I'm going home. You're an idiot. Okay, you can rest. Why are you leaving?
「我不会回家。别刻薄。我没办法。好吧。这很难。哦，我一点也不关心。岛村大笑起来。没办法。你真是个白痴，走路这么狂野。回家吧。
I won't go home. Don't be mean. I can't help it. Okay. Well, it's hard. Oh, I don't care at all, Shimamura laughed. No way. You're such an idiot for walking so wildly. Go home.
“你不必回去，你不必回东京。我设置了。痛苦的是那种似乎深深植根于旅者内心的绝望感，或者在这样的时候保持静止。
You don't have to go back. You don't have to go back to Tokyo. I set it up. What is painful is the sense of hopelessness that seems to be deeply rooted in the traveler's heart. Or at times like this, stay still.
“或许这就是压抑的无奈吧。”岛村沉默了一会儿，心想：女人的心是不是已经到了这种地步？现在就回家吧。其实我想明天就回家了。哦。
Maybe this is the depressing helplessness. Shimamura was silent for a while, wondering if the woman's heart had reached this point. Let's go home now. Actually, I want to go home tomorrow. Oh.
“你为什么要回家？”驹子抬起头问道，就像刚睡醒一样。“无论我待多久，我都无法为你做任何事情。”正当他盯着岛村的时候，他突然语气凶狠地说
Why do you want to go home? Kamako asked, raising his head, as if he had just woken up. No matter how long I stay, I can't do anything for you. Just as he was staring at Shimamura, he suddenly said with a fierce tone,
“那是不对的。” 你不想那样做，他不耐烦地站起来说道。牧城抓住岛村的脖子说：“你不该说这样的话。”行行。当我脱口说出这句话时，我崩溃了。
That's not right. You don't want to do that, he said impatiently, standing up. Mu-Ching grabbed Shimamura's neck and said, "You shouldn't say such things. Wake up." When I blurted out these words, I collapsed.
疯狂地忘记了自己的身体，然后他睁开了温暖湿润的眼睛，轻声说道：“你明天真的该回家了。”然后撩起自己的头发。
So crazy that I forgot about my body. Then she opened her warm and moist eyes and said softly, "You really should go home tomorrow." Then she lifted her hair.
岛村决定第二天下午3点出发。在他换衣服的时候，旅馆的女主人轻轻地走到了驹子身边。我向走廊喊道：“是的。”我听到小麻子回答说
Shimamura decided to leave at 3 p.m. the next day. While he was changing clothes, the hostess of the hotel walked gently to Juzi. I shouted down the hallway. "Yes," I heard Ponyboy reply.
"请放置大约11个小时。也许办事员认为16、17个小时太长了。我一看账单，都是从我离开到凌晨5点。
Please leave it for about 11 hours. Maybe the clerk thought 16 or 17 hours was too long. When I looked at the bill, it was from the time I left to 5 a.m.
一直到第二天12点回来的12点为止。驹子给江东戴上白围巾，到车站送行。即使你买了一些纪念品来消磨时间。
Until 12 o'clock when I come back at 12 o'clock the next day. Juzi puts a white scarf on Jiangdong and goes to the station to see him off. Even if you buy some souvenirs to kill time.
比如烟虎斑水果和华子菇罐头，你还有20分钟的时间。当我走过车站前稍高的广场时，我发现驹子的头发太黑了，阴凉的山下显得更加凄凉。
For example, pickled tiger fruit and canned slider mushrooms, you still have 20 minutes. When I walked through the slightly higher square in front of the station, I found that Juzi's hair was too black, and the shady mountain gorge looked even more desolate.
下游远处的山腰上有一处地方，隐隐有阳光照耀着。自从我来了，很多雪都消失了。但是如果下2天雨， 马上就会积6英尺厚的雪。再这样下去，
There is a place on the mountainside far downstream where the sun is shining faintly. Since I've been here, a lot of the snow has disappeared. But if it rains for 2 days, there will be 6 feet of snow in no time. If this continues,
电线杆上的灯就会在里面下雪了。我会把它收起来。如果我走来走去想着你，我的脖子就会被电线卡住并受伤。你必须堆积那么多东西吗？
the lights on the poles will be snowing inside. I'll put it away. If I walk around thinking about you, my neck will get caught in the wire and hurt. Do you have to pile up that much stuff?
我从2楼赤裸着跳进雪里，窗户少，我的身体完全陷入雪中，看不到了。然后他们游过雪地，就像游泳一样。拉塞尔明天也会到场，我想去看看雪。
I jumped naked into the snow from the second floor. Window. Hand. My body was completely buried in the snow and I couldn't see. Then they swam across the snow, as if swimming. Russell will be there tomorrow too. I want to go see the snow.
但是过年的时候，客栈会很拥挤，我担心火车会被雪崩掩埋。你是一个奢侈的人，不是吗？你一直都是这样生活的吗？驹子看着岛村的脸。
But the inn will be very crowded during the Chinese New Year. I was worried that the train would be buried by an avalanche. You are a luxurious man, aren't you? Have you always lived like this? Juzi looked at Shimamura's face.
你为什么不留胡子？你的嘴，线条整齐有线条，衬托出他柔软的脸颊。我想小贞子可能就是因为这个原因才穿他的衣服的。你是什么？
Why don't you grow a beard? Your mouth. The lines are neat and defined, bringing out her soft cheeks, and I think Mako may be wearing her clothes for this reason. What are you?
每当你取下白色粉末时，你看起来就像刚拿了一把剃刀。一只恶心的鸟在叽叽喳喳地叫。哪里冷了？小麻子抬头看着天空，把胳膊肘靠在胸前说道
Whenever you take off the white powder, you look like you just took a razor. A disgusting bird was chirping. Where is it cold? Xiao Matzi looked up at the sky, put his elbows on his chest and said,
我们去候车室的炉子吧。这时，杨子的山库正沿着从高速公路转向车站的宽阔道路匆匆奔跑。啊，小马将，姓韦桑，小马将，杨子气喘吁吁地说。
Let's go to the stove in the waiting room. At this time, Yoko's Yamahakama was running hurriedly along the wide road that turned from the highway to the station. Ah, Pony-chan, Yukio-san, Pony-chan, Yoko said breathlessly.
只是因为害怕，就像一个孩子逃离母亲粘着的东西一样，他抓住了驹子的肩膀，说道：“快点，你不舒服，快点。”驹子翻了个白眼。
Just because of fear. Like a child escaping from something its mother is clinging to, she grabbed Juzy's shoulders and said, "Hurry up, you're not feeling well, come on." Juzy rolled his eyes. 似乎在努力忍住内心的疼痛。当我压碎他的肩膀时，我的脸很快就消失了，但这是出乎意料的。他明显摇头。我不能回家，因为我要送顾客。He seemed to be trying hard to hold back the pain in his heart. My face quickly disappeared as I crushed her shoulders, but it was unexpected. He shook his head visibly. I can't go home because I have to drop off customers. 岛村惊讶地说：“我不想送他们这样的事情。不好了，我不知道你还会不会再来。”我来，我来。杨子没有听到这样的声音，急忙走进去，说道。Shimamura said in surprise, "I don't want to do this to them." No, I don't know if you will come again. I'll come, I'll come. Yoko didn't hear such a voice and hurriedly walked in and said, 我刚刚给旅馆打电话，他们说是车站，所以我就飞进来了。我打电话，科马说，忍住了，但突然他挣脱了束缚，说道：“不。”就在这时 I just called the hotel and they said it was the station, so I flew in. I called, Koma said. Holding back, but suddenly she broke free and said, "No." At this time, 小贞子踉踉跄跄地走了几步，然后我开始感到恶心。她嘴里什么也没说，眼角湿润，脸颊上起了鸡皮疙瘩。杨子目瞪口呆地看着驹子。Little Mako staggered a few steps. Then I started to feel sick. Nothing came out of his mouth. The corners of his eyes were moist, and goosebumps appeared on his cheeks. Yoko stared at Kamako in shock.
然而他的脸色却是严肃到了愤怒的地步。无论是愤怒、惊讶还是悲伤，他都没有表现出来。他看起来很简单，就像一个面具，脸上带着同样的表情。
However, his expression was serious to the point of anger. He showed no sign of anger, surprise, or sadness. He looked simply like a mask, with the same expression on his face.
他转过身来，突然抓住岛村的手，用一种高亢而专一的语气说道：“喂，对不起，请让这个人回家吧。”“是，我要回家了。”岛村大声说道。“快回家吧，白痴。”
He turned around, suddenly grabbed Shimamura's hand, and said in a high-pitched and dedicated tone, "Hey, I'm sorry, please let this person go home." "Yes, I want to go home," Murakami said loudly. "Go home, idiot."
你没什么好说的，驹子对岛村说道。他的手将杨子推离了岛村。我正把他推开。当岛村试图指着车站前的汽车时，由于杨子用尽全身力气。
"You have nothing to say," Kamako said to Shimamura, pushing Yoko away from Shimamura with her hands. "I was pushing him away." When Shimamura tried to point to the car in front of the station, Yoko used all his strength to.
他的手指变得麻木了。我现在就开那辆车回家，你先走吧。不，人们会看到的。杨子不好意思地点点头，说道：“当我说快点，快点时，我转身就跑。”
His fingers became numb. "I'm going to drive that car home now, you go first." "No, people will see that." Yoko nodded sheepishly and said, "When I said, hurry up, I turned around and ran."
这有点谎言，但我看着他从我身边走开，然后一种深深的怀疑掠过岛村，心里在想，为什么那个女孩总是一副严肃的样子。
It was a bit of a lie, but I watched him walk away from me, and then, a deep suspicion passed over Shimamura. I was wondering why that girl always looked so serious.
杨子悲伤而优美的声音萦绕在岛村的耳边，仿佛随时都会从雪山里传出来。拉着岛村去找司机。不，我不回家。突然间，
Yoko's sad and beautiful voice lingered in Dao Siyuan's ears, as if it would come from the snowy mountains at any time. Pulling Shimamura to find the driver, "No. I'm not going home." Suddenly,
岛村对驹子产生了一种肉体上的仇恨。我不知道你们三个之间发生了什么事，但你的儿子现在可能会死。我想这就是你打电话来的原因。
Shimamura developed a physical hatred for Kamako. I don't know what happened between you three, but your son could die right now. I guess that's why you called.
因为你想见我，老老实实回家吧，我会后悔一辈子的。当我说这些的时候，不要固执地想着，如果你咽下最后一口气，你会做什么，就让它流动吧。不，
Because you want to see me. Go home honestly. I will regret it for the rest of my life. When I say this, don't get hung up on what you would do if you took your last breath. Just let it flow. No.
你误会了。当你被卖到东京时，他是唯一送你走的人。难道一开始就写有一条法律说不许送人最后的时刻吗？
You misunderstood. When you were sold to Tokyo, he was the only one who sent you away. Is there a law written from the beginning that says you are not allowed to give away someone's last moments?
我要把你写在那个人生命的最后一页。不，我不想看着别人死去。岛村认为这听起来像是冷漠的冷漠或过于热烈的爱。当他犹豫不决时，他说
I want to write you on the last page of that person's life. No, I don't want to watch other people die. Shimamura thought it sounded like cold indifference or overly passionate love, and when he hesitated, he said,
我不能再写日记了，我会把它烧掉的。小贞子的脸颊不知为何变得污迹斑斑，低声说道。他说：“嘿，你是一个诚实的人。如果你是一个诚实的人
I can no longer keep a diary. I'll burn it, little Mako whispered as her cheeks became stained for some reason. He said, Hey, you're an honest man, if you're an honest man.
我不介意把我的日记都寄给你。你别笑我。我认为你是一个诚实的人。”岛村被一种难以理解的情感所感动，并意识到没有人比他更诚实。然后
I don't mind sending you all my diary. Don't laugh at me. I think you are an honest person. Shimamura was moved by an incomprehensible emotion and realized that no one was more honest than him. Then,
他就不再强迫小麻子回家了。驹子也沉默了。 经理从旅馆分店出来，宣布检票口。只有4、5个本地人默默地上下车，准备过冬。我不会再去论坛了。
He no longer forced Xiao Matzi to go home. Jizzy also fell silent. The manager came out of the hotel branch and announced the ticket gate. There were only 4 or 5 locals, getting on and off the bus silently, preparing for the winter. I won't go to the forum anymore.
小麻子站在候诊室的窗边说道，窗玻璃门关着，从火车上看。
Xiao Matzi said, standing by the window of the waiting room. The window glass door is closed. Viewed from the train.
这就像一个神秘的水果被留在一个废弃村庄的破旧水果店的一个乌黑的玻璃盒子里。火车一开动，候车室的玻璃就亮了。
It's like a mysterious fruit left in a jet black glass box in a shabby fruit shop in an abandoned village. As soon as the train started moving, the glass in the waiting room lit up.
橘子的脸在灯光下燃烧起来，然后消失了，但他的脸颊却和晨雪中看到镜子时一样鲜红。对于岛村来说，这又是他脱离现实的色彩。
Jizzy's face burned in the light and then disappeared, but her cheeks were as bright red as when she saw the mirror in the morning snow. For Shimamura, this is another color that separates him from reality. 当我从北边爬上边境的山峰，穿过一条长长的隧道时，冬日午后的昏暗光线被黑暗的地下吸收了，仿佛突然间，陈旧的火车脱下了明亮的外壳。 When I climbed the border peaks from the north and passed through a long tunnel, the dim light of the winter afternoon was absorbed by the dark underground, as if suddenly the old train took off its bright shell. 进入了隧道，现在山峰重叠了。我正朝着暮色开始出现的山峡谷走去，这边还没有雪。顺着水流，最终会出现在一片开阔的田野里。Entered the tunnel. Now the peaks overlap. I was walking towards the mountain canyon where dusk was beginning to appear. There's no snow here yet. Follow the water and you will eventually emerge into an open field. 那里的山峰看起来像是被以有趣的方式雕刻出来的，从那里，一条美丽的斜线会轻轻地延伸到远处的月亮，在一座正在生长的山的边缘被着色。The peaks there look like they have been carved in an interesting way, and from there, a beautiful diagonal line gently extends to the moon in the distance, colored on the edge of a growing mountain.
这是野漠唯一的景观，浅浅的夕阳余晖将这座山的全貌清晰地描绘成暗红色。月亮虽然不再洁白，但依然苍白，没有冬夜的冰冷沉闷。
This is the only view in Nomo. The shallow afterglow of the setting sun clearly painted the entire mountain in dark red. Although the moon is no longer white, it is still pale, not as cold and dull as winter nights. 天空中没有一只鸟，山路向左右毫无遮挡的延伸。就在我们快要到达河岸时，一座看起来像是水力发电站的建筑矗立在纯白色之中。 There wasn't a bird in the sky. The foothills stretched unobstructed to the left and right, and just as we were about to reach the river bank, a building that looked like a hydroelectric power station stood in pure white. 那是隆冬时节汽车窗上徘徊的东西。然而，杨子的胸口突然从地藏菩萨身后的低矮树荫下出现了，他立即换上一副严肃的表情。 That's what lingers on car windows in the middle of winter. However, Yoko's chest suddenly appeared from the shade of a low tree behind Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. She immediately put on a serious expression. 几乎就像戴了一张面具，用锐利而灼热的目光看着我。岛村鞠了一躬，停了下来。杨子小姐，你来早了。我去理发店，驹子正要说。It was almost like I was wearing a mask, looking at me with sharp, burning eyes. Shimamura bowed and stopped. Miss Yoko, you're early. I'm going to the barber shop. Kamako was about to say. 他和岛村都像是被一阵漆黑的狂风吹走了一样，瑟瑟发抖。一列货运列车呼啸而过。安姐姐，刺耳的回声中传来一个声音。Both she and Shimamura shivered as if they had been blown away by a gust of dark wind. A freight train roared past. Sisterin, a voice came from the harsh echo. 一个男孩穿过黑色货舱门，正在挥舞着他的帽子。萨罗乌，萨罗乌，杨子喊道。和雪地信号站的站长呼唤的声音是一样的，那是一种悲伤、美丽的声音。A boy walked through the black cargo door waving his hat. Suro, Suro, Yoko shouted. It was the same voice that the station master at the snow signal station called. It was a sad, beautiful sound.
更像是在呼唤远方船上的某个人，而我根本听不到。当货运列车驶过时，我能清晰地看到铁轨另一边的荞麦花，就像摘掉了眼罩一样。
It was more like calling someone on a distant ship, and I couldn't hear it at all. As the freight train passed by, I could see the buckwheat flowers on the other side of the tracks as clearly as if I had taken off a blindfold. 红色的花茎上盛开着花朵，显得十分安静。他们如此意外地遇见了杨子，以至于他们根本没有注意到火车来了。我付了钱就离开了。此后 The flowers are blooming on the red stems and look very peaceful. They met Yoko so unexpectedly that they didn't even notice the train was coming. I paid and left. Thereafter,
杨子声音的回声似乎比车轮的声音更久远，那种纯粹的爱情精神似乎又回来了。杨子目送火车开走，说道：“我哥哥在车上，所以我想我应该去车站。”
The echo of Yoko's voice seemed older than the sound of the wheels. That pure spirit of love seems to be back. Yoko watched the train drive away and said, "My brother is on the train, so I thought I should go to the station."
因为火车不会在车站等候，小麻子笑着说：“是的，我不会去拜访幸雄先生的坟墓。”杨子点点头，犹豫了一下，在坟墓前蹲了下来，双手合十。
Because the train won't be waiting at the station, Xiaomatzi said with a smile. Yes. I will not visit Mr. Yukio's grave. Yoko nodded, hesitated, squatted down in front of the grave, and clasped his hands together.
小麻子依然站着，岛村移开视线，看着地藏，三张长脸，一双手臂一左一右抱在胸前，每人有2只手。我要把头发扎起来。驹子对杨子说道。
Xiaomatzi was still standing. Shimamura looked away and looked at Jizo. 3 long faces, a pair of arms, one on the left and one on the right. Each person has 2 hands. I want to tie up my hair. Kamako said to Yoko.
然后他们沿着山脊朝村子走去。在当地语言中，这被称为 hat， 竹子或木棍从树干到树干被绑成多层，其结构类似于晾衣绳。
Then they walked along the ridge toward the village. Known as hat in the local language, bamboo or wooden sticks are tied in multiple layers from trunk to trunk in a structure similar to a clothesline.
看起来，他们把稻米挂起来晾干，并竖起一个高高的米帘。但是，岛村和他的朋友们经过的路边，也有农民在做那顶帽子。女孩扭动衫裤的腰。
It looks like they hang the rice to dry and erect a high rice curtain, but there are also farmers making that hat on the roadside where Shimamura and his friends passed. The girl twisted Yamahakama's waist.
抛出了一捆米，爬上山的男人灵巧地接住了，整理好，挂在柱子上。他轻松地重复着他熟悉的无意识的动作。小贞子把挂在头上的帽儿捧在手心。
A bundle of rice was thrown, and the man who climbed up the mountain deftly caught it, arranged it, and hung it on a pillar. He repeated his familiar, unconscious movements with ease. Little Mako held the hat ears hanging on her head in her hands.
仿佛在测量什么珍贵的东西，轻轻摇晃着，说道：“收获不错，摸摸吧。稻谷很舒服，和去年有很大不同。”他一边说，一边享受着米饭的感觉。
As if he was measuring something precious, he shook it gently and said, "The harvest is good, let's touch it." The rice was very comfortable. "It's very different from last year," he said, enjoying the texture of his rice.
我缩小了我的花蕾，一群麻雀在上空疯狂地低飞。一个古老的牌子上写着米工的工资协议，包括女工的日工资津贴。它留在了尽头的墙上。
I shrunk my buds. A flock of sparrows flew low and wildly overhead. An old sign reads, "Wage agreement for rice workers, including daily wage allowance for female workers." It was left on the wall at the end.
我也想念杨子的家，它建在一块田地的后面，从高速公路上稍微凹陷，但在花园的左侧，沿着隔壁房子的白墙。
I miss Yoko's home too. It is built at the back of a field, slightly recessed from the highway, but to the left of the garden, along the white walls of the house next door.
一排柿子树上建着一座座高大的小屋。另外，在田地和花园的交界处，与柿子树的帽子成直角的地方，也有一个帽子。
There are tall huts built on a row of persimmon trees. In addition, at the junction of the field and the garden, at right angles to the hat of the persimmon tree, there is also a hat.
它有一个从稻谷下面穿过的入口，这不是稻子，看上去就像是刚挂在小屋上一样。田野里，在大理和玫瑰花的前面，芋头正在展开它坚强的叶子。
It has an entrance that passes under the rice fields. It wasn't rice, it looked like it had just been hung on a hut. In the field, in front of the dolly and roses, taro is unfolding its strong leaves.
戴帽后看不见荷塘里的红鲤鱼。小贞子去年所在的蚕室的窗户也被隐藏起来。杨子愤怒地低下头，从稻穗入口走回去。这屋子里只有你一个人吗？
After wearing the hat, the red carp in the lotus pond cannot be seen. The windows of the Jamsil room where little Mako lived last year are also hidden. Yoko lowered her head angrily and walked back from the entrance of Inaho. Are you alone in this room?
岛村看着他微微驼背的身影问道：“但我不这么认为。”驹子傲慢地说：“哦，我讨厌这样。我已经不再扎头发了。你说这么刻薄的话。”
Shimamura asked, looking at her slightly hunched figure, but I don't think so. Kamako said arrogantly. Oh, I hate it. I don't tie my hair anymore. You say such mean things.
所以我妨碍了我去那个人的坟墓。我做到了。你一定很固执，不想在坟墓里看到我。你不明白我的感受。如果稍后有时间，我会去洗头，可能会很晚。
So I got in the way of going to that person's grave. I did it. You must be very stubborn and don't want to see me in the grave. You don't understand how I feel. If I have time later, I will wash my hair. It might be very late.
但我肯定会去。现在是凌晨3点。当岛村在帐子被推开的声音中醒来时，驹子趴在胸前说道：“当我说我要来的时候，你来了。”
But I will definitely go. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. When Shimamura woke up to the sound of the shoji being pushed open, Kamako lay on his chest and said, "When I said I was coming, you came."
当我说你要来的时候，你就来了。他说着，呼吸声一路荡漾到腹部。做过，你一定喝得很醉了。嘿，当我说你会来的时候，你就来了。哦，我在这里。
You came when I said you were coming, he said, his breath rippling all the way to his belly. You must be pretty drunk. Hey, you came when I said you were coming. Oh, I'm here.
我看不到来这里的路，我不知道，我不知道了。驹子说着，把他往后一仰，翻了个身，让岛村感到沉重，想站起来，却意外地被惊醒，感到头晕目眩。
I can't see the way here. I have no idea. I do not know. Kamako said, leaning her back and turning her over, making Shimamura feel heavy and wanted to stand up, but was unexpectedly woken up and felt dizzy.
再次摔倒时，我惊讶地发现我的头枕在一个滚烫的东西上，这就像火一样。你这个白痴！真的吗？火枕会烧伤你的。确实如此，岛村闭上眼睛说道。
When I fell again, I was surprised to find that my head rested on something hot. It's like fire, you idiot. Really? The fire pillow will burn you. It's true, Shimamura said, closing his eyes. 热量弥漫在他的脑海里，让他感觉自己真的还活着。随着驹子粗重的呼吸，他开始明白现实，就像怀旧的遗憾。Heat filled his mind, making him feel like he was actually alive. As Kamako breathed heavily, she began to understand the reality. Like nostalgic regret. 就像一颗已经平静等待着某种复仇的心。我说你来的时候你就来了，小贞子专注地重复道，现在我要回家了。然后他爬了出来，喝了很多水。Like a heart that has been calm and waiting for some kind of revenge. You came when I said you would come, repeated little Mako attentively. And now I'm going home. Then she climbed out and drank a lot of water. 我不能就这么回家了。我要回家了。我不跟你在一起了。热水器哪儿去了？岛村站起来打开灯时，驹子用手捂住脸，倒在榻榻米上。不 I can't just go home. I'm going home. I'm not with you anymore. Where did the water heater go? When Shimamura stood up and turned on the light, Kamako covered her face with her hands and fell on the tatami. No. 她穿着一件带有华丽圆露袖的睡衣，黑色的衣领，还有一条枣红色的裹身裙。所以内衣的领子我看不到她，我缩着身子隐藏自己。She wore a nightgown with gorgeous Jinroku sleeves, a black collar, and a maroon wrap skirt. So I couldn't see her through the collar of her underwear. I curled up to hide myself.
光脚的边缘沾满了醉意，显得异常可爱。看来洗澡用具已经被扔掉了，肥皂和梳子散落一地。剪吧，我带剪刀了。你要剪什么？就是这样，小麻子说。
The edges of her bare feet were stained with drunkenness and looked extremely cute. It appeared that the bathing utensils had been thrown away, and the soap and combs were strewn about. Cut it, I brought scissors. What do you want to cut? That's it, Xiao Matzi said.
"把手放在头发后面。我试着在家里剪本油，但我的手不听使唤。我想我应该到这里来，让他们帮我剪。岛村将女人的头发分开并剪断了发结。
Put your hands behind your hair. I tried to cut motoyu at home, but my hands wouldn't work. I thought I should come here and let them cut it for me. Shimamura parted the woman's hair and cut off the knot.
"每当有停顿的时候，驹子都会甩掉头发，让自己平静一些。现在几点了？已经3点了。哦，真的吗？你不能剪掉你本来的头发。你扎了很多领带。
Whenever there was a pause, Kamako would shake off her hair to calm herself down. What time is it now? It's already 3 o'clock. Oh, really? You can't cut your natural hair. You wear a lot of ties.
"他抓住你的发根，暖和多了。已经3点了。我从客厅回来，显然他睡着了。我答应了朋友，所以我邀请了他。他把它给了我。我想知道你去哪儿了。"
He grabbed the roots of your hair and it felt much warmer. Is it already 3 o'clock? I came back from the living room and apparently he was asleep. I promised my friend, so I invited him. He gave it to me. I wonder where you went.
"我们3个人正在洗澡，有6间榻榻米房间，但我们只能去4间左右。下周就要忙着赏秋叶了，非常感谢。他一边说着，一边梳理着自己的衣服。
The 3 of us were taking a shower. There are 6 tatami rooms, but we could only go to about 4. I'll be busy admiring the autumn leaves next week. Thank you very much, she said, arranging her clothes.
"他抬起头，笑容灿烂。 我不知道，呵呵，这很奇怪。他随手拿起了头骨。我要离开，因为我为我的朋友感到难过。回家的路上，我不会再过来了。你能看路吗？
She looked up and smiled brightly. I don't know, haha, this is weird. He picked up the skull casually. I'm leaving because I feel sorry for my friend. I'm not coming over on the way home. Can you watch the road?
我看得见，但他踩到了下摆，绊了一跤。岛村觉得他有些不寻常，认为他一天2次偷走了自己的空闲时间，早上7点和凌晨3点。
I can see it. But he stepped on the hem and tripped. Shimamura thought he was a little unusual and thought he stole his free time twice a day, at 7 in the morning and 3 in the morning.